64 degrees here also this morning.
All right, here we go. KB2 UK, good morning, Richard. Good morning, DJ. And we're live on YouTube.
Good morning, sir. 20 over into the community of Lampley Shore, Southern Ontario. Temperature outside is 64 degrees, 73 degrees here inside the shop.
Well, you're a nice solid 15 to 20 over yourself there, DJ. What do we got today? Jillian has some stuff going on. Carter has some stuff going on, and I'm going to try to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, we've got the Alvinston Fair Parade. Our grandson's driving my dad's first John Deere 4020, and then it was when he traded in, his grandfather bought it and had it all these years. I think it was 1964, 65, 66, somewhere in around there when Dad got it. And anyhow, so yeah, it's been in our family a short time, but it's been in Mark's family since then. And so Josh is driving, and Frank started to refurbish it, but he passed away, never got it done. So Frank's got a son-in-law is a farmer, so he took the project over and did a really nice job. So it's all refurbished and everything. And so when we go to the parade, I'll video a little bit when Joshy goes by, because that tractor looks beautiful. So anyhow, that's what we're going to be doing today.
Oh, well, that sounds like an absolute blast. Let's see, are we getting rain today? It's drizzling out right now, and then that appears to be at maybe a little between 3 and 4 p.m., but it's just going to be cloudy all day. And then tomorrow, cloudy. Just lots of clouds in the forecast. Looks like the sun isn't really making it out until Thursday next week, but that's all right. We needed a little moisture.
Checking in, N4QNT, good morning.
Good morning, Art. Welcome to the party.
And John should be in there too.
Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning.
Richard's out there too.
Yep, Richard's out there.
Good morning, Richard.
Well, Art, we were talking about Simon Brown's. What is it? What's his program called?
Console, version 3 console.
He just updated it, right?
Console. Yeah, if he could take that software package and implement Dr. Warren Pratt's Pure Signal, and if he could somehow carry over the noise reduction algorithm and noise blanker algorithm, package from Thetis, now that would be something sweet right there.
So he just released an update, right? And Pure Signal used to work in SDR console. He had a version of it where it worked.
No, Doug.
I'm almost certain. And then he pulled it, and that's why it mentions it on the website. I was speaking to somebody who has a copy of it.
All right, well, it could have been a version lost in maybe a beta, and he just put it out for a moment. But all the ones I've ever downloaded and worked with and tried, it has it. There's the two-tone, but, you show it. It's the little, the hertz, whatever frequency is lifting up. You could do a tone. You can run it, but it wouldn't transmit, of course. It wouldn't go through the radio. So you're saying someone had a version where it actually corrected?
Yeah, I can't think of his call sign. His name is Ed. I got to talk to him. I talked to him on 3854. I don't understand why, because I thought he was done with the software, and then he comes out with this update, to John's point, that's like the most important thing he should be putting in there.
Yeah, Doug, I won't get deep into it, but I know the person you're speaking of. Don't get me started.
Okay, fine. Then I guess he just saw the button.
Yeah, let's put it this way, but I can tell you,
don't waste your time, I think is what he's saying.
Got it. Completely understood.
But the Simon Brown's software, his console software, is modern. It uses modern coding technique. And, I mean, for example, we were talking about it on the other band, Doug. We would talk about, if you look at console, it has those real-time scopes, right? Like the real-time audio scope and the real-time band scope and all that stuff that you can look at, all on the same screen at the same time. And what he's doing there is he's taking advantage of, DirectX, video. He's using, taking advantage of modern graphics capabilities, in software. So that's what's missing in Thetis, because Thetis is so old. The code, it goes back to the early 2000s. It's old, and then at the time, that's how you did software. That's how you did the graphics. You got to remember back then too. A typical monitor's resolution was 640 by 480. That was a typical VGA monitor back then. And if you had a fancy one, you had 1024 by 768 resolution. So just as an example, if you set the graphics resolution in the bottom left corner of Thetis, if you move it to, let's see, where would it be? It would be under 4 by 3 is the resolution. The 1024 by 768, that's actually the way Thetis is supposed to look. If you take a look at it, notice how everything fits nice and packed together.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I played around with those resolution settings. Yeah, I would love to run SCR console because I've downloaded it before. I like the interface. I like the way it looks. I can't remember. Its noise reduction, even as is pretty good. Am I correct?
It's excellent, actually. Yeah, I tried it several times.
The only thing I can think of, and I could be completely wrong here, is that maybe because Simon, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe Simon charges for his software, like for real versions of it, I think. But if he does, maybe that's where the problem is because any of the code, let's say that's in Thetis, that's open source. I think that's where the problem is I think he's not allowed to use open source code in a commercial software product. Now I could be wrong about this. This might have nothing to do with it, but I think that's the kind of the problem. With the open source project, like with Thetis, everything is supposed to be public domain and shareable. Like there's, the code is available, nobody hides anything. And the other part of the agreement is that nobody makes money selling it and doing it for profit, because that defeats the whole point of it being like an open source shareware thing, right? So I think that's where sort of the problem lies in some cases. So let's say the Pure Signal, for example, that supposedly is Dr. Warren Pratt's algorithm. Well, if he developed that as part of the open source project thing, then Simon wouldn't really be able to just copy and paste that into his software package because it's technically open source. So I don't know how that, to say, like, how do you get around that? Like, what kind of agreement, could he make directly with Dr. Warren Pratt, for example, to implement it in his software in a commercial way. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but that's what I think the issue might be as to why Simon hasn't just put Pure Signal in there and all that. I think it could be a licensing thing or something.
I can't find any pay-to-play stuff on the website. I think it looks like it's free.
It's been free that I know of.
All right. Well, as long as it stays free, then it's all open source at that point. It's all public, not for profit.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's open source, so let's use Richie as an example. Hey, Simon, I'm ready to look behind the curtain here. Let's lift the hood up on console, and I can make some things happen. I don't know if that's happening. You know what I mean? I think this is Simon's baby, but it's still free.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
He sells a commercial license for $125 if you're using the software in a commercial capacity.
The thing is, I know pretty much almost any of us, for a reasonable fee, I wouldn't mind paying for the software. I know maybe I'm speaking out of line, but if the software is good and the software continues to get developed and improved, every so often I can totally see spending a reasonable fee to upgrade the software to keep it going, to keep it going, keep it alive, and keep it. So I got no beef or problem, forking over a few bucks, within reason, of course, but, for software.
Yeah, me neither. If it's good, why not? If it's good, if the updates are timely, sure.
Just think about when I guess the latest and greatest Smart SDR, which it has to be a 0.0. In order for them to charge the $200, it has to be 4.0. So, what is going to be the next big thing to pay for? Is it going to be the adaptive pre-distortion feature? Or is it going to be, something else they're going to nickname or call it or whatever? But I would think if they're going to do it right, Flex, they more or less showed and displayed, adaptive pre-distortion. That's going to be part of the 8,000 feature. That's got to be, in my opinion, they did it with SmartLink. They did it with Multitask. Those were 0.0 versions. You had to cough up 200. So if you're going to cough up 200 for 4.0, I think the big banner above it, it's going to be adaptive pre-distortion. But I guess they're shooting for August of 2025.
The Flex system and the software, I know we bash them once in a while, but there is a certain simplicity and elegance to the whole thing. I mean, I'm acknowledging that. With Thetis, you can make adjustments forever. I mean, just forever. You can adjust this and you can change that and you can adjust this. And we like that, right? But in some ways, the Smart SDR or that type of approach where there is hardly any adjustments, everything is kind of set and built in. To a degree, there is a certain elegance to that. It's clean, it's less cluttered, there's less confusion, there's less things for people to screw around with. I could see that kind of theory or that thought process. But my thought always was, well, what you should have in Smart SDR is a standard mode and then an expert mode, right? So you could decide, like, if you're just a guy that just wants the basic features and you don't want all the bells and whistles and all, you just put it in standard mode and there you go, you got Smart SDR. But wouldn't it have been nice if down the road they had an expert mode and all of a sudden you can now get under the hood and adjust a whole bunch of things, AGC curves and things like that. That's what I would love to see. I would love to see something like that. So you're making, it's the best of both worlds.
N4QNT.
The A3 KBC.
KB2 UKA.
KB1B, I'm listening.
Good morning, Isaac.
Morning.
Got what I found when I got my first SDR, which was the 6300. It was pretty well plug and play, and what I found was I had the whole spectrum, and I thought, holy smokes, with the other radios I had, I felt blind, and now I had the whole spectrum. It was limited what you could do, just like John said, but for those that don't want to play around and they just want an SDR radio with full spectrum of the band, it's great, and just utilize that and just run simple. But when I got the Anon, that just opened up a whole new avenue of things to do and customize, especially the customization, making it look better and have your meters and bar graphs and everything else. So I have never looked back, but like John says, the Flex program is fairly streamlined, and there's people that would appreciate that, but those of us who like to experiment and really get into these things, the Thetis program is still far superior.
What I would hope Richie does at some point, and this is kind of like an idea or a vision that I would have for it, is once he's gotten this container thing fully worked out, which to me, and I've said this before, is an interesting way to get around the limitations of Thetis's built-in user interface, right? The thing we're complaining about, you can't do anything with the buttons, you can't fix this, you can't move that. Well, Richie, using containers, has kind of figured out a way to circumvent that. So what I would love to see is, since the container concept allows you to put just about anything inside of them, is at some point, once he gets it all ironed out, have the pan adapter waterfall full screen and create a template that's called basic, and the basic template will automatically be preset when you first install Thetis, and it'll have all the basic metering and controls laid out in the container boxes for you. Now you can go in later on and totally customize and change everything, but he needs to do that. He needs to get it to the point when we make the jump from the old way Thetis looked to the new way, which is going to be the containers, that they make a good preset so that the average user that's never used Thetis before can get in there and immediately use Thetis and understand what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing about Thetis. There's so much you can change, and in some ways, so many things you can screw up. If you get in there and you start changing things that you don't know what you're doing, you can screw stuff up, actually, with Thetis. Even if you screw up your PA settings, you could theoretically damage the radio. So anyway, I'm just saying that would be cool. But the container concept is a beautiful way around the limitations of Thetis. And I love that you can put active and live windows inside of them. The possibilities are endless there. Graphics, video can be displayed in those containers. Yeah, I love it. Great concept. Great way around the problem.
Let me see if I have it. Yeah, it's really cool, and he confirmed with me on the Discord channel that eventually there will be pan adapters inside the containers for multiple slices. I think that's very cool.
Okay. So this is the thing I was talking about earlier. Whereas Simon Brown's console. You know how they have those little Spectrum scopes for the audio, and you can actually have a separate pan adapter. He's taking advantage of the DirectX feature in Windows Video. So if you do that, yeah, he could have multiple pan adapters show up. Well, I guess we could call them panafalls because it's really a pan adapter and a waterfall, right? He can have them in separate containers for separate receivers, and obviously, not just that, he could also implement scopes. Also, he could create an audio scope, module that you insert into the container, and that could be assigned to whatever, receiver A, receiver B, and there you go. So the it's the possibilities are theoretically endless.
They are. And there was something else. Oh, I would expect a VST host or something of that nature inside a container soon also.
Yes, that's the next thing that I was going to mention, the VST host. Well, and that's all public domain. Steinberg makes that available. If you want to implement it in your software, they don't charge for it. I think all you have to do is, give them credit in any of the documentation. But other than that, yeah. And once you have that, well, come on, guys. That'll be the magic moment in SDR history right there when that happens. Because for the first time, you will be able to process your audio in the way that you want without having to go outside of Thetis at all.
Well, if that happens, Doug's going to have to go to Home Depot and get a pail of spackle.
Listen, I was just going to say, I've been watching the G2 videos that Steve has been putting up. For right now, I have no intention of leaving the analog rack gear because I like the way it sounds. And if that is the case, I should be running a G2 with Pi SDR standalone because I have not one audio feature turned on inside Thetis. I don't have the leveler on. There is nothing turned on. So I could technically have a G2 sitting here with just the screen on. That's it.
Yeah, running the outboard is definitely a nice way to do it. No question about it. But it would be nice, from a convenience standpoint down the road, is to have that built-in plug-in capability. Because, at that point, plugins are pretty damn sophisticated depending on the ones that you buy. Some of them are very, very accurate at reproducing vacuum tubes, so like a tube limiter or a tube compressor, like a Fairchild, something like that. Some of them are very, very accurate, even in the coloration and the harmonics that the tubes give you and all that stuff. So, yeah, you get yourself a nice fancy microphone, you hook it up to the G2 or whatever radio, and you open up a couple of plugins, and you've got essentially a virtual rack. The big problem with doing it traditionally now is you have to do it through a DAW. And now, then you got to connect the DAW through connections to VAX, and then you got to get that into Thetis. That's the problem, is the whole chain. Because by the time you do that, you've added latency. Sometimes there's issues with it locking up properly. It's just not the perfect solution. It can work, and if you iron it out and work out the bugs, you can get it to work. But it's not solid. What would be solid is if the host engine was inside of Thetis running, and all you have to do is go into your little container, click the drop-down box, pick a list of your installed plugins, click on it, boom, and then you just insert it into your mic channel, and that's it. You're off and running.
And for QNT.
KB2 UKA.
For the hour. KB1BM.
And to that point, John, because I played with the digital stuff for many years, and, with the Apollo, or even forgetting the Apollo, just the plugins themselves inside a DAW do sound very, very good. And locally, I think it's very, very difficult to tell the difference between an analog rack and the DAW. But when you go through all that routing that you just mentioned, not only the latency, I think you introduce that, the average person's not going to hear it, but I think you introduce some type of digital artifacts or a digital coloring to the sound that kind of negates all the hard work that the guy who created the plugin went through to make it sound analog. So yeah, if it's containerized inside Thetis and there's no more long audio chain or routing chain to get it to the software, that could simplify things a lot.
That's a good mention, Doug, and I always refer to this about DAW. It's only as good as the hardware behind it, and that includes the audio interface box and, of course, the computer system.
Yeah, absolutely. The audio interface is a very important part because that's your digital to analog or analog to digital converter, right? So, that's what's going to take your microphone signal and get it into the digital domain. Now, once it's in the computer, the quality of it is good. It went into the computer at good quality because it went through good converters, right, in the interface. If you're using quality plugins, not just like, the freebie, unknowns, and some of those are good, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying if you're using quality plugins like Waves plugins or Universal Audio plugins, there's a Brainworks, there's a bunch of really good ones they're very accurate, they're scientifically correct, they're not just like pretty and they look cool, but under the hood they kind of suck. I'm saying if you use real plugins, and you have everything set up right, it sounds as good or better than any analog setup today in today's technology, because I explain this a lot of times. The way that they're doing a lot of these plugins, like let's say they're trying to replicate some vintage compressor. They're not like trying to copy the sound. What the really good ones do, like Waves plugins will do, is they try to copy the circuit that makes the sound. So they emulate the capacitors, they emulate the resistors, they emulate even the lengths of the wire inside the unit, the vintage unit itself. They simulate a whole bunch of things, even like the tubes heating up and causing parts to drift, right? Right, like in a true piece of analog equipment, the heat from the tubes, or the electronics heat up. Some components will drift a little. That can affect things. All that stuff is created into a mathematical algorithm. It's incredible, and it's called, it's modeling. They call it modeling, right? They're modeling the circuit, and it's pretty amazing that they, to even be able to do that. But that's the goal, is you want to model the circuit, not try to like copy the sound, because if you model the circuit, then you can actually simulate even the quirks that some of that older gear had. Like we would call it like a negative, like, oh, that's bad that it drifts, it's bad that it does that, because we're used to everything being dead solid and stable. But old vacuum tube equipment, it drifted a little up, it drifted a little down, if the window was open and the wind was blowing, it changed the temperature. But that's how that stuff worked. And now plugins, if they're written correctly, they can emulate those changes and differences.
Yep, yes, they can. And that whole modeling the circuitry, I think that was UAD's claim to fame. Weren't they the first ones to do that?
Well, I'm not actually sure of the roots of that kind of modeling, but I would say the people most responsible for, bringing this technology kind of forward would be Waves. Was an early pioneer in the plug-in world anyway of doing the modeling. I know Roland, the Roland Corporation, Roland keyboards and that kind of stuff. They got into modeling even I think into the late 80s. They started screwing around with that. So it wasn't computer-based. It was done in hardware. But yeah, I don't know the roots of when it actually started. But Steinberg probably made the biggest contribution in the sense that they invented VST, or virtual studio technology. And VST is essentially the technology that made it possible to take a standard off-the-shelf computer like a Mac or a PC and turn it into a recording studio. Before that, you had a Pro Tools system, but that required very expensive and very proprietary hardware interfaces and converters to connect to your Macintosh computer. And so it wasn't really like an off-the-shelf thing. So Steinberg created VST. And VST, they made part of their technology open source. So you're allowed to create plugins or add ASIO. That's another thing they invented, ASIO, the audio streaming input-output code driver. And that makes it possible for a standard PC to send and receive audio in almost real time. Because before that, there was big latency sending audio back and forth between a computer. Now, they've got it down to, sub-milliseconds. So, yeah, Steinberg, probably the most important company, I would say.
Well, guys, I'm going to go get my day started. You guys have a great Saturday, and we'll catch up with you all later. Victor Alpha 3 Kilo, Bravo Charlie.
All right, DJ, take care. 7-3, KB2 UKA.
Yeah,
7-3, DJ. Have a great day.
Yeah, keep us posted on the Karen chicken saga. All right, 7-3 from Ed4QNT.
Will do.
Well, Doug, don't feel strange. I'm running all analog right now. I'm only running, just technically two pieces, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm running the Wheatstone M1 and the Aphex 204. And that's just going into an analog Behringer mixer, and then from the mixer it goes into the G2.
Are you on that? Does the G2 have a real line level balance input on the back, or is it like quasi?
I would say it's quasi, and someday we're going to convert it to a true balanced, but but yeah, no, it's fine. I'm using that now.
So for years, when I was running a rack, I would run it into the line in on the back of the 7000, and I would always have noise. This time, I'm using a DI box that I could adjust the output, and it's been flawless. So I don't know if I always needed a DI box. I've tried the Jensen balance to unbalanced transformer. I even had noise on that. But the DI box that I have an ART DI box. I think it's an ART. Yeah, it's the Pro Clean or the Clean Pro. Ever since I'm running that, it's been flawless.
And for QNT.
Well, using a DI is not a bad idea, and the majority of them have some kind of transformer in them, and some better quality than others, but generally they're all audio grade. I'm trying to think with the line in, if the noise that you were getting, was it like hiss? Was it like a lot of hiss?
No, it would, even if I had the levels down. Well, no, if the levels were down, it wasn't there. Even if when I would dead key and the gate would be on, I would see a transmitted signal. I would see it on the Kiwi SDR, like in Pennsylvania, and I would see it on my own PAN adapter. And it was at this QTH, it was at the old QTH. I don't have a ground loop. Everything goes to its own a dedicated circuit on the main. No matter what I did, I would see that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, unless the only thing you might have had like a level mismatch between the input of the radio and the output of whatever device was the last thing that in your chain there. Maybe there was a mismatch of level. Maybe it was like mic level to line level or something like that happening.
Right. Well, coming out of the rack was all line level. And now when I dead key, it's completely flat ever since I started using the DI box.
Well, that's the trick, I guess, the direct box.
Now, Jensen makes a direct box. It's like $300. It's green. You've probably seen it before. It probably has a slightly better transformer than this one, but this is working fine.
Yeah, see, now, that's the thing. It's like splitting hairs. For a super ultra critical, audio recording with the finest microphone in the recording studio, being captured at, 192K audio that's where having a Jensen box is something, is going to make some kind of a difference. But in ham radio, it's like so much of that stuff is just overkill. We're transmitting 4, 6, 8 on a really good day, and that's pretty much it. We're not going out to 20K.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. Okay, any noise that the Jensen, especially the 1-to-1 on the balance line level stuff, any noise that's getting out of the signal is completely degraded by the transmitted audio. Like just the hiss in the background is going to undo anything that thing did.
Well, the big difference with the higher quality direct boxes is the quality of the transformer that's in them. That's really what sets the price difference. It's not so much getting out the noise. What it is that some, like the really cheap direct boxes, the cheapest of the cheap, they'll use like almost a telephone grade, transformer in it, which the audio bandwidth of the transformer is a little limited. So what it actually does is it affects the sound of what's going through it. Your microphone won't sound the same because of that cheaper transformer. But when you go to the really nice boxes, they have very precision wound, transformers in them that are shielded, and some of them are a little metal can and everything. Real precise, those give you very low noise, very high bandwidth, so it's the quality of the transformer itself that you're paying the extra money for usually in the, especially like in the Jensen or the Cinemag ones, things like that.
Your new mic, right? It plugs into a transformer, if I recall. Is some kind of a box or accompanied with that particular mic?
Yes. So technically, it's a power supply, but there's a transformer inside of it, and there's no phantom power on because the power supply is supplying the voltage required for the tube in the mic. And then on that box, I can control the mic pattern, where I can go omnidirectional, I could go figure 8, or I could go cardioid, which is what I have it on now. I have a flat, probably a 3 and a 6 dB low cut, and then I have a pad, -0, -10, -20. So the low cut's in the flat position right now, and I have no attenuation. It's at 0 dB. But yes, any of these tube-based microphones, they appear to all have a separate dedicated power supply.
Right. And I think what I'm going to reference, and John, what's the brand of it again, Doug? The new mic? I know, well, you got it used, but great condition. What's that one? What's it called again?
It's the Rode Classic. That's all it's called, from 1992.
Right. So, John, basically that setup is, the audio transformer, kind of like a Jensen in a way, built into that transformer box. I would imagine that's the cleanliness of the mic right there, the first input stage, right? The audio flow, microphone, cable, transformer, and it's probably working through that particular transformer built into the power supply.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Well, it's a vacuum tube microphone, so unlike all the other microphones pretty much that use transistors, this uses a vacuum tube as the first stage there, from the capsule, right, from the microphone capsule into the vacuum tube. And the power supply has to supply power to the filament of the tube, and it has to provide some high voltage, to drive the tube, and some other components. And and then I guess they have some wires that go up so you can change the pattern of the mic. Because with those microphones, there's actually 2 capsules back to back. And by changing the phase of the capsules, you can change the pickup pattern, from like omnidirectional to cardioid.
My only complaint with it, and it's not really a complaint because this wasn't designed for some guy sitting in his ham radio room. The proprietary cable that comes with it is about 20 feet long. And when I first hooked it up, I had loads of RFI, and then I had to choke the hell out of it with one of the big donut toroids. So, and it got rid of all the RFI. But what I want to do is I want to cut the cable and splice it and make it shorter. I think I'm going to do that eventually, because I probably have about 13 feet of cable wound up on the floor here.
You could hook that mic up.
I get it. You might be able to find someone that makes a shorter cable pre-made, or instead of hacking up that cable, you might be able to make up a new one yourself. You just got to find out what the original, what the ends are that are on there now, which shouldn't be too hard. You should be able to find out what those ends are. It's like a multi-pin connector. yeah, as long as you get that, you could get yourself some cable, and you can make up as long or as short of a cable as you want. And then you have still the original cable that, is untouched.
And for QNT.
KB2 UKA. Yeah, it's either 8 or I don't remember. It's like an 8 or 10 pin connector, very small pins. I could do that. You're right. But if I could also just cut this thing. I could cut it, solder it nice and neat, heat shrink it. It'll be fine. So right now, from the end of the microphone to the back of that power supply, it's probably 5 feet of cable. Meaning that's the length I would need.
Yeah, I mean, if you definitely know what, where the box is going to sit for sure, make a cable that's just long enough to do it.
Hey, Doug, how's the ASU project coming along? The 101. Did you get it powered up yet?
So I mangled the rectifier board trying to remove the screws. I had to drill them out, and when my drill slipped, and I put a hole through the board, which did not mess up any of the traces on the back of the board. And then I had to remove some components that were burnt out. I put it back together. I fired it up the other day, and I blew the fuse. So the board's mangled. So I found somebody on the 101 page who shipped me a board for $15. And I'm going to just rewire the board into the radio and take it from there. I have to get that board working because in the first stage of the fault tree, there were problems on that board. So I don't know what other problems I have until that board is working.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, well, exactly. That's what initiates the power up. So, all right, well, hey, yeah, this is what you wanted. This is what you were hoping for. I mean, this was your kind of new hobby in a way. So that's cool. Hey, the problems are going to occur. You're going to research, do some troubleshooting, and step by step. But that's great.
It's cool. Somebody was able to come up with a replacement board for so cheap. That's a great deal. $15.
These guys, John and Art's the one who told me about the page. It's called Keeping the Yaesu 101E Alive. There's a few thousand people on it, and they are fanatical about this radio. I probably could have asked for anything, and I got a response in about 2 minutes. The first question was, are you in the U.S.? I said, yes. He says, I got a board for you for $15. He says, it's a little dirty. I think all the components are fine on it, though. I said, well, I don't care if it's dirty. I don't care if it's blank. Just send it to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you got a board that's damaged, I mean, you're going to need a replacement.
Now, here's the issue that I haven't tackled yet. When I got the screws out, I basically drilled the heads off. The shaft of the screws, there's 2 screws, is still inside the, let's just call it the receptor of the screw. And I don't know how to get that thing out without destroying the receiving threads of the receptor. I believe I can buy a very small reversible drill bit. I think that's what I'm going to try to do.
Is it flush?
It's flush. There's nothing I could grab.
I think the thing that the screw broke off in is called a standoff, right? It's a little metal thing that just raises it off the chassis a little bit.
That is correct. Are you saying what I think you're going to say? Remove the standoff and replace it? The problem with that, I'm looking at it right now. In order to access the other side of the standoff, I'd basically have to remove the entire RF deck.
Well, maybe not. The standoff, if it's a regular standard kind, should just be threaded into the chassis. So you should be able to just turn it counterclockwise, the whole standoff, and it should unthread from the chassis.
I was hoping, I didn't try that yet. I was hoping just a pair of pliers and go counterclockwise and it'll come off. So that's what I'll try first. And then if I get it off, I could just replace it. Or I could try to get the screw out without destroying it.
Okay, real quick. So, Doug, here's the dilemma, and you're all over it. Once you start unscrewing the standoff barrel, right, counterclockwise, and you're able to get a good grip with, pliers, whatever, and you start unscrewing it, then you want to get those surgical needle nose with the click, 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 real thin, narrow tip. And as you start unscrewing the barrel, you're going to have about 1/8 of an inch of clearance to grab the return screw underneath the RF deck, because if it falls, you can't get to it. So those little surgical needles will snap. It'll hold the screw while you're unscrewing the barrel. It'll maintain, and then you screw on the new standoff. Hemostat. That's the one.
What's it called, Richard?
Hemostats.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'll grab a pair of those. The other option that I could do, because there's probably like a few millimeter opening between that part of the RF deck and the encasement of where the standoff is connected to, I might also be able to slide something back there to hold the screw in.
Well, I don't know if there is a screw. That's what I'm trying to say.
So John thinks it's more just like a riveted bolt, probably, or just a rivet
into the sheet metal of the chassis. So you might not have to worry about. I'm just guessing though, but I don't think there's a screw on the other side of it.
Oh, you think the standoff has a thread, and then that screws, machine thread, and that goes into the actual galvanized the chassis itself.
That's what I think. I mean, I'm taking a little bit of a guess here, but let me show you a picture. I'll just send a picture of them so you can see what I'm talking about.
There might be like a rivet on the other side of it holding it in place.
And good morning, Richard.
Yeah, good morning, Art. Good morning, John. Good morning, Doug. I've been sitting here listening. KG4 WQQ.
Good morning, Richard. Yeah, I'm hoping it's riveted, and there's just a stud basically behind it.
Look at what I just put on the group there.
Well, that's exactly what it looks like, but what would be holding that in on the other end? Unless that's just, would there be you're saying there'd be a bolt behind it?
The coupling on it to where you can bolt into the top side. But also, standoffs can have a coupling. It'd be just more like a coupling to where it's got a Phillip head or a flathead screw on the other side, and then that coupling would thread down on the screw. And them standoffs come in variable sizes for a coupling like that to fit the screws to where you get your height what you need. If he's got a standoff with a screw broke off at it, he's going to need to replace the standoff.
Yeah, Doug. What I'm saying is, I don't know. We don't know for sure, but there's a possibility that if you look at the standoff I put a picture of there, right? if the chassis is threaded, sometimes they just put a thread in the chassis, like the stamped chassis that that it's mounted to, and that just threads straight into the chassis. There's no nut or screw or bolt or whatever on the other side of it. It just screws straight down into the chassis. That might be the case. So you might not have to worry about a nut or a screw falling or anything like that. Now, I can't say that for 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure most of the time that's the case.
Well, you guys stand by 1 second. I'm going to try to spin this bad boy. KB2 UKA. I'll be right back.
KG4 WQQ.
And for QNT.
KB1B, I'm listening.
Some standoffs are solid, they're hollow through the center of them to where it takes a solid bolt and a nut to go through them, just for the standoff. I mean, there's variable differences in a lot of standoffs. Some standoffs are metal, some standoffs are porcelain. If it's a porcelain standoff, 9 times out of 10, they already got a screw thread bolted off inside the porcelain, or the porcelain will be hollow all the way through, where the screw goes all the way through, and a bolt and nut on the other end. Yep. Yeah, if it's especially the older, when it gets old enough, that's when they would just put a nut and a lock washer on the other side of it.
Yeah, those.
If there's high voltage on it, they'll use the porcelain to insulate it with a thread on the outside of the porcelain, and both ends of the porcelain would have threads on it to where you could bolt it down to shield the high energy that's a high voltage board or something like it, to keep it from arcing and jumping the ground.
Yeah. Hey, John, the standoffs you posted, those images, they remind me of the type for the PC motherboards. They come with the motherboard kit, the baggie of the standoffs, and screw them into the chassis of the case, right? The tower. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Same exact thing. And who knows? Those might even fit in the hole that he has on his chassis.
Well, they do come in different diameters, so that's a possibility. You can, get a box of them with all different sizes.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm not sure. In his radio, is it a receiver only or is it a transmitter?
Yeah, I got that, Richard. And John, what was the question about the receiver or transmitter?
Is the radio Doug's working on, is that a transmitter, a transceiver, or just a receiver?
Oh, yeah, that's a full-pledged Yaesu 101E, the famous Yaesu rig from back in the day, from the mid-'70s, late 70s.
Aha. All right. So, yeah, there is some parts of it where there is high voltage, where the finals are inside. It's probably a little cage there. So you would definitely have to pay more attention to what kind of standoffs you're using in that spot, for sure. Sometimes if they use them in like an RF situation, they'll use plastic ones, if it's where it's just isolation, but not high voltage. And if it's just basic, good old mounting the circuit board to the chassis, no big deal. The metal ones are pretty common for that. Well, he needs to be careful because, those radios produce some pretty high voltage.
Oh, yeah, he's taking this project on with kid gloves, and he's the tubes, everything, and learning the grounding it out once you had it on. He's grounding discharge and all that. He's going through the motions. He's doing good.
Yeah, I think what would be good for him to do is disable the high voltage part for the transmitter. Just unwire that temporarily, just like 2 wires or something like that to take that off. And then try to, get the rest of the radio receiving and all that, and then maybe start going from there, hook the high voltage back up. That's the thing he needs, he should have a high voltage probe, also, so he can take measurements. So I don't know. I don't mess with the high voltage anymore. I don't know. I don't trust myself.
Yeah, exactly. Seems like there's some interference here at KC up. I heard Richard, you go up and I guess he just started calling or talking or something. He didn't say. He sounded like he just woke up, that guy.
I don't know what his problem was, but I could hear you giving his call out, but I barely could make his call out. Well, tell him, look, we're on 7214. You need to move on.
KB2 UKA.
All right, Doug's back.
I got it. So as soon as I hit it with the plier, it loosened up, and I know I was able to look back there, and it's held in with a screw. So there's a speaker plate. I removed the speaker plate. I can access the screw. So both screws. So now I can remove it, and I can hold the screw in place when I tighten a new one on top of it.
All right. So there was a screw holding it in.
Yep, I sent a little photo.
Oh, we have photos.
Hey, Doug.
What's up, Isaac?
So like a pro ready there, go.
well, I wouldn't say that yet. This thing might take me 6 months to get it turned on.
Hey, you're doing good so far. Kirby 1B, yeah.
Thank you. I want to get this one done so I could work on the Drake that I have here. That's the one I'm really excited about.
Be real careful around that high voltage there, Doug.
I want to put the Molex plug back in there because I got the cable from the ICOM to Molex, but somebody put in them. I like to put the Molex plug back in the back of it there. So I got a little project here on the floor to do there, go.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, you were telling me about that. And John, yes, I have a very, very healthy fear of the high voltage. I told Art about this. When I'm working on it and it's turned on, I've got what you call Class 0 electrical gloves. And they can handle 1,000 volts of steady electricity. And I still keep one hand behind my back when I'm adjusting stuff. So yes, I'm well aware.
Yeah, I would say also is on that group that you're on for the Yaesu, just ask them, what's the best way to temporarily disable the transmitter, the high voltage part of that, so that you could just work on the lower voltage part of the radio. Because really the first thing you want to do is get the thing to receive, right? Once you can get it to receive, okay, you got something to work with. And then, and then start working your way into the transmitter part.
Yes, so the problem is when I finally powered it up, before I did anything but cleaned it, there's zero receive. There's 0 meter movement, 0 sound, just 0 receive. It all lit up. So then I had to go through the no receive fault, and I was getting fault. I had to test this rectifier board for voltages, and all the voltages were not correct. And there's 600 volt DC is one of those. So I had to test high voltage right there. So I don't know what else is wrong until I get this rectifier board going, but everything else looks okay. The resistors were blown, the diodes were crumbling on the rectifier board. So I had to replace them, but I also destroyed the board because somebody else must have tried to remove the board, and they torqued the screw too hard, and they took the Phillips portion of the screw and made it round. and the position of the screw didn't allow me to grab it, so I had to drill the head off. I also couldn't cut a slice into the screw with a Dremel because there was no room. I would have cut wires if I got the head in there.
N4 QNT.
KG4WQQ.
KC2QMA.
You're doing good, Doug. You're all over it, man. That's it's good. I'll tell you, you go from 0 to 60.
I've got 30 hours completed in my 100-hour online electrical engineering course also.
I don't know. You might have to lose your day job.
Well, I do it at my day job. I'm not stupid. When I'm bored, I put on an hour course, and I just listen to the guy, and he's got a whiteboard, and he's demonstrating everything. It's really, really good. I think I've learned more in those 30 hours about electronics than I've learned in 30 years doing ham radio.
Well, you're still a young dog.
Yep, the brain is still absorbing things.
Yeah, my plan today was to very carefully remove the warranty seal on the back of this Lux, or just slice it. I'll probably just put a little razor right on the where it wraps around the back cabinet to the side case. It's past its warranty, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's time for a maintenance cleaning. I bet the fans are probably built up pretty good with some dust.
Yep, I need my amp's going to be a year old in November. I need to do the same thing.
The seasonal blowout.
That's it. Take it out to the garage, put the compressor on a medium level, and very gently, I use a chopstick so the fans don't spin. You don't want those fans spinning too fast with the compressed air. So you just hold them in place and then get all that debris out of the power supply. Do a nice cleaning today. It's good to do at least once a year.
Speaking of fans, I messaged Onder the other day, the guy who makes the VK amp. And I asked him for the dimensions and the wattage requirements of the fan, of the big fan, not the main fan in the back. And I told him I want to replace it with like a high-end, ultra-silent fan. And he said the only way to do that is to slow the fan speed down. But am I correct that there are expensive fans that are silent?
Yeah. Well, the Noctua fans, I just put one in the G2 here, and wow, what a difference. You don't hear anything, and those are, German-made, great crafted fans for computer, tower computers and servers. So it's just the correct voltage rating. Most likely it's 12 volts, I would think. And the dimensions, I would think it's a 120 millimeter fan, but John, are you familiar with the fans in the back of your? I would imagine he's using the same fans on, like your series versus Doug's.
Yeah, I think it's a 120 millimeter fan. I know the fan that's in there is a very high quality one. It's not the quietest one, but it's one that will, it'll last a lot of hours. You know what I mean? But yeah, a Noctua fan should be fine. I just don't know what the spec is. If you're able to take the cover off yours, because it might be different in yours than mine, but if you take the cover off, you could look on the fan. There should be a sticker on it, and it'll say watts and it'll say volts. Usually, sometimes it'll even tell you the rotation speed, but it'll usually say watts and amps, and volts.
Yeah, so he told me it's a 140 millimeter 12 volt fan.
What'd you say, 140?
140, roger.
Okay, 12 volt. So yeah, as long as you know whatever the wattage is supposed to be, and that's probably written on the fan.
Okay, and then I'm assuming that thing is plug and play, right? Like with the fan speed and the control, the amp is going to take care of all of that.
Yes, the fan that's in, at least in my amp, is a 2-wire fan. It doesn't use the speed sensing line or whatever. It's just the 2 wires. So it's pretty much a direct swap.
All right, roger. I will be right back. I have to run upstairs for a second. The African gray parrot is banging on his cage and annoying my wife. So she just woke up, so I got to go feed him quick. I'll be right back. KB2 UKA.
Time for that morning cracker. They usually love a peanut, too. Just give them a peanut. It keeps them quiet for a while.
Yeah, I'm still running the stock fan in my G2. I did change out the mounting from screws. Like, I got rid of the screws because it was screwed right into the metal. And I could tell right away that was a problem. And I swapped it out with those little rubber bushings. And that made it a lot quieter just doing that. In the future, what I really want to do is cut that hole open all the way and put a much, nicer, screen over it. That'll reduce the wind noise, the air noise from going through all those little tiny holes, because that's generating a lot of noise. Just the air flowing through all those tiny holes in the case, the lid, makes a lot of noise. And it restricts the airflow. I mean, I know why they do it. They're doing it because they don't want big pieces of debris falling into the radio. But, yeah, so that'll make a big difference. When I'm ready to upgrade the fan at some point, I'll probably cut that hole open completely and then put the Noctua in there with the rubber bushings and a new screen, and it'll be nice.
Yeah, it's my little goof up in the beginning. I took it for granted it was a 120 millimeter 12 volt, like a PC, and it turned out to be a 5 volt. So, all right, we got it swapped out. Everything's good.
Yeah, I got to try to find the correct one. That Noctua makes a 5 volt version of that fan, and you don't see them everywhere. That's the problem. They're a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I posted it on Darren's going to do it, Captain Darren. So I'm copying it right now. I'm forwarding to. Here you go. Just forwarded to you. This is the exact. This is the one you want right here. It's coming your way. What's nice about it, John, is you don't have to maintain the long nuts and bolts and washers and everything like they mount their factory fan on the Anon. You can actually use the threaded fan screws that come with the Noctua, and they fit through those 4 hole openings perfectly. And you can even put your the fan already has the rubber cushioning on each edge of the fan for the vibration factor. And then you could put if you do cut out your opening, then you could put your cage over those 4 holes, and then the threaded screws will go right into the fan itself and bite and make the mount. So you don't have to sit there and put those long, unless you want to put them back on, that's up to you. But it makes it a lot easier to mount it. But that is the correct fan, measurements, speed, everything for the, for the Anon.
All right, I'm back. UKA.
Yeah, Art. I think a combination of using, having the rubber bushings that the fan already comes with, and then I would go even a step further. I'll use the damn rubber bushings to mount it also, and really isolate it. And then, to combine that with the cutting the hole open in the top of the lid, that'll make a huge difference.
And for QNT coming up on the 50.
KB2 UKA. I'm telling you, so with this large diaphragm condenser, it hears that fan in the VK. So I'd like to get something silent in there.
KG4 WQQ.
Well, there is some other options. The thing is, the fan needs to be able to keep the amp from overheating. So, you got to make sure you're careful about slowing things down too much. But one thing you could experiment with is putting putting some different resistors. I don't know what values, you'd have to experiment, but in series with the fan, and see if you could reduce the speed a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know that you want to experiment with the fan and the thing and all that. I mean, I'm just saying, you have to keep in mind the amp has to stay cool too.
Right. So I don't know anything about these fans that you guys were mentioning. I was assuming they spin at the same rate of speed as this one does. It's just quieter.
Not necessarily. Yeah, there's different RPM offerings in these series. Like Noctua will have like server. So even though it's still 120 millimeter dimensions for mounting purposes, then it's application purposes. So they might have fans that are going to be like thicker. So these being maybe 1 1/4 inch in thickness, the other Noctua series could be almost 3 inches, and servers where noise doesn't matter, and it'll sound like a jet engine taking off.
Okay. All right. I got it now.
Yeah, there's a variety of options in fans. You can have high-speed fans, like Art was saying, where it doesn't matter if they make a lot of noise. It's all about moving tons and tons of air, right, for like a server. And then there's ultra-quiet fans, which are designed to be super quiet, but they do have less airflow. So, you got to find the right, the right fan for your application. What I would do is figure out what's in the amp now, see what the brand is. You might be able to get a model number off of the fan that's in there, right? Or Andre might be able to even send you the data sheet on it or something. But once you know what the current fan spec is and like what it's supposed to be, as long as you find like a Noctua, let's say, that is very close in spec, and sometimes you can actually get a better spec, believe it or not. You can improve on certain things. Then you're fine. I think the most important thing is going to be two things. The amp can't draw more current than it's supposed to. It can't be higher in wattage than the one that's in there now. And the CFMs, how much air it moves. It's got to be able to move a sufficient amount of air at low speed. Because our amps have two speeds. They either have low speed or high speed. So at low speed, it's got to move enough air to keep the amp cool, but still be quiet. So I'm surprised. I mean, your amp goes into high speed?
It does when it hits. When it hits usually 40 degrees Celsius, it goes into high speed, and that's usually when I'm long-winded. But in the summer down here, it was happening more often.
And it goes off pretty quick, though, right? Within like a few seconds.
It'll hit, it hits 40, 41 Celsius. It goes off, it turns on. And then usually within like a minute or two, it drops it back to 38 and then it shuts off.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. I think I have mine set a little bit higher. I think I have mine set at 45, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe that's what I'll start with, especially because I don't have HVAC down here. It's a Long Island basement, so it stays probably about 68 to 72 degrees, no matter what time of the year it is. But this room is insulated, and with the tube gear and the amp and all the monitors and all the computers and the video lights for the live stream, this room could get 78 degrees very, very quickly in the summer, 80. So I think for the winter, I'll bump up the temperature to 45, because in fact this equipment warms the room in the winter to a comfortable temperature, and I'll figure out something for next summer.
Hey, Doug?
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a Long Island basement and a Boston basement?
It's colder.
No, the guy in the Boston basement, it made him $100 million.
Wait, who's in the Boston basement? I know the Delaware basement. It made that guy president.
Schultz.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Tom Schultz, the Boston basement. John's relating quickly.
Boy, Art, I'm going to get a refund on this little video card.
What's wrong with the card, Richard?
And the reviews are not good.
Well, that's why it was $283.
No, $228.
Reviews meaning the card itself, or about how long it took to get there, the shipping?
Well, this review says scam. Your order will never not come in the mail. Delayed another week. Scam. Amazon needs to avert the seller, and what waste of time. I mean, they're just, these are dated back 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you didn't see those, and that, hey, you take it for granted it's all good, it's Amazon, but it's the seller, the marketplace guy who's doing it, right? But at least you got Amazon as a safety valve. You'll definitely get your money back. There's no problem there, but it's a shame. You got to deal with the shady sellers on Amazon.
Yep, I placed an order 2 weeks ago, still haven't received it. The tracking information provided also does not work.
Well, you got that drop-down menu, refund, no shipping, or whatever. They give you that option. It never showed up, so at least you'll get your money back, and then you got to just move on.
Hey, remember my $95 Palstar dummy load?
Oh, that's right. Whatever happened with that?
Absolutely nothing. So, 4 days ago, I remembered it. And I went into PayPal. I clicked, and the website's gone. The website's completely gone. So I went into PayPal. I clicked never shipped, no shipping. And then it asked for the website. And I said, website no longer exists. I clicked submit, and it was an instant refund.
Man.
We like that speedy service.
That's why I love using PayPal.
Yep, it's the best. And that $95 sitting in my PayPal balance, 15 of it went towards my new rectifier board.
All right, guys, coming up on 9, I'm going to take a breather, get down to the kitchen, and fire up something. So it's been fun, good QSOs, and we'll be back later. 7-3 all, I'll listen out. N4QNT.
All right, Art. Catch you later, KG4WQQ.
All right, Art, 73, and I'm going to be right behind you guys. Right behind you, Art. So 73, everyone. Take care.
All right, Doug, Art, Richard, 73. Have a great day. I'm going to get the day going here, too. A little bit of rain, but...
All right, guys. And Matt, yes, I will absolutely take you up on that. And I just saw what you just sent me. I'm going to take a look at that as well. 73, everyone. Have a great weekend.